He's talking about the 7 signs that were done, or that he's recorded. Let's go to the end of the book of John. That's a good place to begin. In John chapter 20, verse 30, and then we're going to kind of talk about what's in the book. But this is how John sums it up. Now you know how he begins. He begins, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And that's a great set of verses. But let's go here. Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not recorded in this book. Let's come back. I don't want to forget this word sign. Many other in this book. But these are written. He says he did many others, but they're not recorded in this book. But these, the ones I have chosen, John says, these 7 are the key ones. These are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. So in other words, he says there's many other signs he did, but these are the 7 I'm focusing on. This is enough for you to be convinced that this is the man you should be trusting in. Let's read the very last of verses too. Verse 24 of chapter 21. This is the disciple who testifies to these things. Or he says the witness of these things. And who wrote them down. We know that this testimony is true. Now he says, you know, you can go ahead and date it to 150 AD, but I know what I wrote is true. I saw these things. Jesus did many other things as well. He says, you think I'm exaggerating? He says, I could have just kept right on going, and then I would have seemed like I was exaggerating. He said he did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. He says this is just a mere sampling of what he did. Now, before we go any further, I want to talk about the word sign. And somewhere in here, I've got it. Let me see if I can find the text right here. Yeah, go to page 181. 181. And the word sign, at the very top of there, talks about a sign. The word sign, you know, you have signs, wonders, and miracles. Wonders, a lot of times signs and wonders are listed together, but a wonder is basically just that. It's something that is done that's like, whoa, that's amazing. I wonder how he did that. And that's the purpose of wonders, like to get attention, like, wow, show me how you did that. Like a card trick or something, but I'm being facetious there. But I mean, it's something, a wonder. A miracle, again, I can't spell the word miracle, I'll abbreviate it. Too many A's and E's in there. The word miracle, that is exactly where God intervenes and does something. And there may be a variety of reasons why he performs the miracle. Maybe to deliver the people. He came just to deliver the people. What was he trying to show? Nothing. He was delivering you. It was a miracle. Or he may have a purpose. But the word sign, it comes along with the word wonder. A sign is for this reason. It's to make you look at it and go, what does that mean? Not, I wonder how he did it, or thank God I'm delivered, God delivered me, but what does that mean? In fact, what does this mean is the key to a sign. Jesus does 7 signs, which means every sign in the book of John, and again, he did other ones, but the ones that John spoke of, he did 7 signs. It's like, oh, cool, look, Jesus walked on water. Isn't Jesus wonderful? No. What does that mean? When John says he walked on water, it's like, what are you trying to say? And the key one, we're not going to get there tonight, I really like to, is when Jesus turns or multiplies the bread. And this is in John chapter 6. This is the turning point. And you can see Jesus just pushing the issue. When it talks about Jesus says, I brought a sword, they're all saying, this is great. Jesus just fed the multitudes. And they came back the next day for breakfast. That was great. We want you to be the king. You can heal people, that takes care of our health care, and you can give us bread, that takes care of the welfare. It's like, this is good stuff. You can be the king. And in other words, when they saw the bread, they simply says, good, we're happy, we want bread. And that wasn't the point. The point of the bread was for them to say, what does this mean? This man just multiplied bread. Now you talk about a shallow generation. He multiplies bread and they say, cool, can we have breakfast now? Aren't you wondering how I did that? And Jesus spends the rest of chapter 6 trying to drive home the point. He even says, I am the bread of life. Since you didn't ask, I'll tell you. I gave you bread, so you'd say, what does this mean? This man gives us bread. Do you think he's got sources beyond just bread? Could this be something important? No. They said, is there breakfast? And Jesus says, okay, let me say it this way. I am the bread of life. They go, oh, yeah, okay, fine. Where do we get in line? He says, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part of me. They, well, now you're being kind of obscene. And they didn't like it. It says many of his disciples left at that time, and Jesus turned to the 12 and said, are you going to leave too? Jesus says, this is the cutting point. He says, I'm the bread of life. If you don't understand this, if you're not going to ask why, and then Peter said, well, where else are we going to go? Who else has the bread of life? I don't know. No, I think we're going to stay, aren't we? We don't know our way back. Great. I mean, what, you know, and that is the purpose of the sign. Now, I'm going to show you, go to Acts chapter 2, and I'm going to show you a sign that works. And again, I'd like to teach this to you, but again, we can't yet. It deals with tongues. Uh-oh. Now what's going to happen? Okay, I knew this was going to go off the deep edge soon enough. But anyway, you are in Acts chapter 2, the Pentecost. The fire comes out of the sky, the Holy Spirit falls on them, and the disciples begin to speak in tongues. And again, there's a whole fun discussion on that right here. But I want you to notice right here, all of Israel heard them speaking. I got to say this. I can't pass it up without saying this. When you go to Sunday school and you see pictures of the day of Pentecost and them all speaking different languages, what you get the picture of is you get the picture of the Jews are from all. It gives you the list right there in verse 8, where they're from the Parthians, the Medes, all these different languages. And you've got over here, you've got Peter speaking Egyptian, and over here you've got Thomas speaking a little bit of Greek, and here's somebody over here, one of the Bartholomew, doing a little bit of Parthian. And it's like, you're like, oh, let's see, that's not my language. What are these guys? Oh, and you're looking, oh, here's, yes. And then you begin to listen to your disciple. You always see little circles. I don't know if you've ever seen a Sunday school picture of this. There's like a disciple with a little fire on his head, and he's got his mouth open, and a bunch of people from that country listening, taking notes. And it's like, well, you know, what's amazing about that? These guys are all speaking our language. You know, it's like, look, this guy's speaking English. Or this guy's speaking Greek. It's like, what was amazing about that? Nothing, you know. But what was amazing is that it says, as you read through this, let's go back to verse 5. Now there was staying in Jerusalem God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. When they heard this sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment. What was that sound? Because each one heard them, listen, each individual Jew that came from all those countries, each individual heard them, all of them, speaking in his own language. It's like, oh my gosh, these guys are all speaking Parthian. No, they're not. They're speaking Egyptian. Oh, are you understand what they're saying? Yes, I speak Greek. It's like, and what it says about 3 times in the text there, they heard all of them speaking their language. And you know, you've heard this taught before. That word language is not Greek or Hebrew. It's dialect. It's like they're speaking Texan English. They're speaking New York English. It's like, this is from my home. They speak just like me. All these Galilean fishermen are speaking like they're from Texas. Well, they're not. They're speaking like they're from New York. They're not even speaking English. They're speaking Greek. And it's like, that was weird. In other words, the miracle wasn't in them speaking. The miracle was in we are hearing. It says it several times. We're hearing this in our own dialect. And that leads you to, because that's amazing. Is that not amazing? We hear them declaring the wonders of God in our own language or tongue. Verse 12. Big deal. Amazed and perplexed, they asked one another, what does this mean? Here, right there, it's like, whoa, this is a sign. This is not normal. What does this mean? Where the Jews didn't ask the question in John chapter 6, they says, give us breakfast. In Acts chapter 2, they go, okay, this isn't normal. And they didn't say, oh, wow, that's cool. Where can we get this on videotape? They says, wait a minute, think about it, folks. This is a sign. This means something. Not that it was just a miracle. Not that it was just a wonder. God is trying to show us something. That's what Jesus was trying to do in the book of John. He was trying to show them something. John says 7 times he tried to show you something. 7 signs. And you just said, give us a breakfast. But in Acts, they say, what does this mean? Now watch what happens. Some, however, made fun of them and says they have had too much wine. We can explain this. They've had too much wine. Verse 14, then Peter stood up with the 11 and raised his voice. And then now notice, Peter raises his own voice and he begins speaking in the Aramaic probably, or the Greek or whatever he's speaking in right there. But nonetheless, that's a sign. That's a detour, but that's a sign. That's what's explained there on the top of page 181.